Their love was not born in the midst of great events. It was not in a grand moment, nor in a movie setting. It was in the simple things, in everyday life, in conversations by the river, in the glances exchanged in the village square, in the smell of the fresh bread she made every morning, in the sound of laughter that escaped when their eyes met in the middle of the routine. They were the kind of loves that didn't need loud promises. It was enough to be there. It was enough to look at each other. It was enough to touch their hands as they walked side by side. It was enough to have silence that said more than any words, "I'm here, and so are you." His name was Viktor, hers, Alina. He, a hard worker, simple, a son of the land, with calloused hands, a firm but sweet gaze. She, sensitive, full of life, full of dreams, with that way of someone who made even the world seem lighter just by smiling. They weren't perfect. They fought, argued, and lost touch with each other over the little things in life, but they always always came back, because deep down, they knew it was in each other that the world made sense. Life went on peacefully in that village, forgotten by time. They were already talking about building a bigger house, about having children, about watching the apple tree in the backyard grow together with the family they dreamed of. But then, the radio rang. The news, cut through the air like a knife, to war. The summons. The narrator emerges, his voice heavy, slow, full of pain and beauty. What nobody tells you is that, sometimes, it's not war that destroys, it's the wait. It's not knowing, it's the silence that comes, when the one you love leaves without knowing if they'll come back. Viktor received the letter, yellowed paper, sealed with the army coat of arms. The heart seemed to stop before it even opened. She looked, trying to be strong, but his hands were shaking. The look said it all before the words were even read. "Are you serious? He whispered, his voice breaking. He didn't answer, he just lowered his head, and he pressed the letter to his chest. The next day was filled with silence, of hands that sought each other, of looks that could not be taken away, of long hugs that wanted, somehow, to keep on the skin, the smell, the touch, the warmth of each other. If I could, I would freeze this moment, he thought. If I could, I would make time stop here, at this exact second, because everything that matters is here, in her. But time is cruel. He doesn't stop. He doesn't wait. He does not forgive. On the day of departure, the season seemed colder. The wind blew differently. The people were shadows. Everything felt smaller, tighter, more suffocating. The train whistled in the distance. Every second sounded like the sound of a heart being broken. The narrator returns, his voice lower, more poetic, more raspy. There are hugs, that aren't just hugs. They are silent promises. They are a wait for me, said with the eyes. They are a don't forget me, said with the touch of hands. She held his face, the eyes, full of tears that tried, at all costs, not to fall. Promise, that you'll come back. His voice was a thread. He pressed her face between his hands. He looked deep, and, even with his chest tearing, he replied, I'll come back for you. Even if I have to cross the world, even if I have to fight against everything, I'll come back for you. I'll come back. The train was approaching. The sound of the wheels on the track sounded like the sound of everything collapsing inside. They hugged each other, strong, so strong, it felt like if they squeezed just a little tighter, they could merge into one. The narrator appears, his voice now just a whisper, almost a prayer, and in that hug, in that last look, in that last touch, there was everything they were, everything they dreamed of, everything, what war, I couldn't, to take. The whistle blew, the train stopped, the door opened. He held her hands until the last second, until the fingers slipped, until emptiness was left in the place of hands. He got on the train, he looked out the window, and there she was stopped standing, with hands on chest, with wet eyes, with my heart, holding on to everything I could, so I wouldn't collapse. He put his hand to the window, she did the same, and, in that gesture, in that simple gesture, they said everything they would never be able to say again. He's waiting for me, I'll wait for you. The train started moving, the world has moved away. Love was suspended between the war and hope. that love, it could wait, for the end of it. The train whistles seemed to never stop. It was as if his every breath was a cruel reminder. Time is up. The station clock kept ticking, cold, indifferent to the pain that was happening there. But, for them, time seemed different. He didn't run, he shattered. Viktor held her hands as if he were holding his own heart. Her skin was hot. The smell of home, of love, of everything he knew. And in that moment, he understood something he had perhaps never realized with such force. She was everything. She was the whole world. The narrator appears, his voice choked, full of poetry and pain. There are goodbyes that are not just goodbyes. They are silent wars. They are promises made in the middle of the torn chest of those who love and don't know if they will return. She was shaking. Tears filled his eyes, holding back the tears as if he were holding his own body to keep from collapsing. What hurt the most wasn't just the departure. It was not knowing if there would be a return. Promise. His voice was a thread. He squeezed her hands tighter. I promise, he replied, without hesitation, but with a cracked voice, holding everything together so as not to break completely. She looked down. The tears began to flow, silently, as if even they were ashamed to fall at that moment. Promise, that you'll come back to me. That, no matter what happens, you'll come back. That you'll go through any hell, any distance, any pain, to come back to me. He held her face between his hands, looked into his eyes, and in that look, he deposited everything. Love, the fear to miss, and the promise that, at that moment, became a vow, became an oath, became life. I'll come back. Do you hear me? I'll come back to you. I'll come back to our home. I'll come back to this life that is ours. Neither war, nor time, nor destiny, will stop me, because I don't belong on that front. I belong to you. The narrator returns, his voice now lower, slower, charged with emotion. There are promises that are not made with words. They are made, with the eyes, with the hand that squeezes, with the hug that refuses to let go. They are made, when those who love, need to trust, That love, is stronger than destiny itself. She reached into the pocket of her dress. He pulled out a carefully folded piece of fabric. Inside a letter. But it wasn't just a letter. It was a piece of her. Take it, she said, placing it in his hands. Take it with you. And when things get tough, when it seems like everything is going to fall apart, open it. And remember that there is someone, waiting for you. That there is someone, who loves you more than anything in this world. He held that letter as if he were holding a relic. He ran his hand over the paper. He pressed it to his chest, and he swore, without saying, that it would never leave there again. The train snorted once more, the smell of smoke mixed with pain. The soldiers going up, the doors slamming, the nervous nods, hands shaking, the whole world falling apart, in slow motion. He held her face one last time. Their foreheads touched. His eyes closed. I love you, he whispered. I love you more, she replied, in a whisper of a voice that seemed to want to cling to him, never to let go. The narrator returns, his voice now torn, as if holding his own chest to keep it from breaking. There are loves that are stronger than any border, stronger than any war, stronger than any goodbye. But even these loves, they still hurt, because promise, it does not always guarantee that the world, will comply. The final whistle sounded, the sound of everything falling apart. Viktor got on the train. She stayed, the hands still touching until the last second, through the window panes, the eyes saying everything that the mouth no longer had the strength to say. He's waiting for me. I'll wait for you. The train started moving, first slowly, then faster. And as he walked away, it was as if the world was falling apart, piece by piece. She ran, following the train along the platform, the face bathed in tears, hands on chest, the body trembling, the scream stuck in my throat. Come back to me, come back to me. He with his hands on the window, clutching the letter paper to his chest, the tears streaming down, the mouth trembling, and I could only whisper, wait for me, I'll be back, I'll be back, I'll be back. The narrator emerges, his voice now breaking into poetry and pain. And so, with promises made, between tears and hands that refused to let go, love stayed. It was hanging in time. He was suspended between two worlds. He was waiting that somehow love survived until the war decided to end. The train had already disappeared over the horizon. The smoke disappeared into the grey sky, taking part of it with it. And now there were no more holding hands. There were no more promises whispered in the ear. There was no longer the smell of home, nor the warmth of the embrace that made the whole world make sense. There was only the front, the sound of gunshots, the smell of gunpowder, the cold of the mud sticking to the skin, the body, the soul, the silence interrupted by bombs tearing the ground and, along with it, pieces of men, pieces of lives, pieces of dreams. The narrator appears, his voice deep, low, full of pain and poetry. War does not just destroy cities. It doesn't just take lives. She also tries to erase memories, erase loves, erase everything that once made someone smile. Viktor marched, with a rifle in his hands, with feet buried in the mud, with his face covered in dirt, sweat, blood, and despair. But inside the pocket of his uniform, folded so carefully, pressed against his chest, was her letter. The one thing war could not take away. In the intervals between one explosion and another, when the silence seemed to last seconds before being torn apart again by bullets, Viktor took out that paper, opened once, twice, 3 times, the same words, the same letters, the same smell, and for a few seconds, the front disappeared. For a few seconds, he returned to her, to the backyard of the house, for the smell of the apple she cut in the mornings, to the sound of her laughter in the late afternoon. But the problem with war is that it doesn't allow anyone to be distracted for long. She pulls you back, drags you by the hair, and it reminds you, cruelly, where you are. The commander shouted, "Position, come to the trench now." The sound of machine guns intensified. The bombs exploded, so close that the ground shook beneath their feet. The sky was fire. On the ground there was blood air. The narrator returns, his voice heavier, tighter, almost suffocated. To war, it doesn't kill you all at once, it kills you, slowly. She tears it off, piece by piece, until you forget who you were, and who did you love. Viktor ran. He threw himself into the trench. The body sank into the icy mud. My heart was racing not only with fear, but with despair, because, in the midst of that chaos, he realized the war didn't just want his body. I wanted the memory. I wanted to rip it out of her too. I wanted to erase even love. And in that moment, holding the rifle in one hand and her letter in the other, he made a silent oath. "You won't take me whole. You won't erase her from me. You will not destroy what we have built." Days turned into weeks, months. The hunger, the cold, the exhaustion, the sound of bombs has become as common as the sound of one's own footsteps. The smell of death was already part of the air. At night, in the trench, when silence returned, not the silence of peace, but the silence between two offensives, he looked up at the sky, and there, among the stars, he looked for her face. "Are you also looking at this same sky?" he whispered, his voice choked, holding back tears. The narrator appears, his voice now more shaky, more poetic, more pained, because love in war, and that, it's screaming to the universe, without knowing if anyone hears you, it's writing letters, without knowing if they'll arrive, it's holding on to a memory, like holding on to your own life, because sometimes the only trench that keeps you alive, it's love. But the war kept trying. She dropped bombs, she tore away friends, brothers in arms, pieces of the world. She did everything she could to make him forget, so that love would not survive. But he resisted. He was breathing. He held that letter close to his chest, and even when it seemed he had no more strength, he whispered, "For you, for you, for you, I stand. For you, I survive." The dawn brought no hope. It brought more shots, more orders, more destruction. But, in his chest, there was still one thing that war could never steal. Her face, her smile, her smell, and, the promise they made. Before all this started, the narrator closes. His voice is now just a breath, tearing through the chest of whoever hears it. And so, as the world fell apart, while the war tried to erase everything that love built, there was, a man, in the trench, in the middle of hell, with eyes closed, holding a letter and whispering, to no one, or maybe, for the entire universe to hear, I'll be back. I'll come back to you, even if I have to cross hell itself. The war had already taught Viktor many things, living in fear, sleeping next to death, understanding that, here, time does not flow, it bleeds. But of all the things war could teach him, nothing, absolutely nothing would prepare him for that day. It was early morning. The cold was biting. The mist danced over the trench. The smell of gunpowder still permeated everything, mixed with mud, sweat, blood and fatigue. And then, the messenger came. He carried a worn-out bag on his back, full of letters, notes, folded papers that, at the front, were worth more than food, more than shelter. They were worth life. Viktor, letter for you, he said, throwing the envelope into her hands. The heart, failed. The hands, froze. The body remained motionless, because, letters from the village always brought a piece of home, but sometimes they also brought a piece of the end. He looked at the envelope, her name, her handwriting, the smell, it was her, but something was different. The line of the letter, shaky, the fold of the paper, crumpled, and, in the corner, a small stain, He didn't know if it was a tear or an omen. The narrator appears, his voice low, choked, almost a thread of poetry suffocated by pain. There are letters that carry love, but also they carry the sound of a world, collapsing, in the chest of the reader. His hands were shaking so much that he could barely open them. The paper tore at the edge. The chest seemed like it wouldn't fit inside him. He took a deep breath. It's a lion, my love. I don't know, if this letter will reach you. I don't know if time, will still be ours. But I need you to know. I need you to understand, that even if everything ends, the love I feel for you will never, never end. The world, stopped. The sound of bombs disappeared. The smell of war has disappeared. The cold, the wind, the gunshots. Nothing else existed. Just those words, and the pain, piercing deeper than any bullet. Viktor, I am sick. Very, the doctor said. That may be, I won't see next winter. My body no longer responds. My eyes look for you in every corner of this empty house. And sometimes, I wonder if you feel that way too. If you, can feel me, even there, so far away. He put his hands to his mouth. The eyes, burst into tears. The chest, imploded. The body, trembled. The narrator returns. His voice now more broken, more shaky, more choked. There are pains that don't come from gunshots, not even bombs. He comes of words, of phrases that pierce, in a way, that never heals. He pressed the paper to his face. Her smell, the sound of her words, her presence, and at the same time, the imminence of absence. If I could, I asked you to come back, but I know, that I can't. And maybe, when you read this, I am no longer here. But if I can ask you one last thing, please, it rots, time, come back, just to see me one more time, just to hold myself together one more time. Why, if this really is my last breath, let it be, in your arms, in the arms of the man who, was, is, and always will be, the love of my life. His body, fell. He knelt on the floor of the trench, the mud dirtying the legs, the face, the fingers, but he, didn't even feel it. The tears, fell uncontrollably. The shoulders trembled, as if the body itself was breaking from the inside. The other soldiers looked on, but no one said anything, because, whoever has received a letter like that, he knows, you know, there are no words, there is no hug, there is no consolation. Who dares to try to Fix ... a chest that ... it just fell apart. The narrator appears, his voice now just a breath, broken, trembling, as if he were holding back his own tears. And so ... in the middle of hell ... in the middle of the fire, in the middle of the end, a letter. It tore deeper than any bullet, because ... it wasn't just paper that arrived in that envelope. He was the cruel warning that sometimes ... love runs against the clock. That doesn't stop, that does not wait, that does not forgive. He looked at the sky, the eyes are wet, hands shaking, the paper clutched to his chest, and, in a cry that came out more like a stifled whisper, he begged the universe, "He's waiting for me, for God's sake ... wait for me. I'm coming back, I'm coming back." But the time waits for no one. The paper trembled in his hands. The heart felt like it was going to rip out of his chest from beating so hard. The face was soaked with tears, sweat, mud, blood. It was no longer clear what was physical pain, what was fear, what was despair. The entire world seemed to shrink until it fit into a single sentence. "Come back if you can, just to hold me one more time." The narrator appears, his voice hoarse, trembling, torn, as if holding a lump in his throat. And in that moment, the war is no longer against the enemy, and it became against time, against fate, against the impossible. Viktor clutched the letter to his chest. He was breathing heavily, as if he were struggling not to collapse, but the chest felt like it was crushing from the inside. The throat tightened. "What do I do? What do I do now?" he thought, staring into the emptiness of the trench. Staying was doing his duty. It was about continuing to fight, obey, survive in the middle of the hell I had known for months. But to stay, it meant, maybe, never seeing her again. The world clock was ticking, and she was leaving. He squeezed his eyes shut, held his head in his hands, kicked the mud, punched the trench wall, as if he wanted to rip open his own chest, break the universe, stop time. But time does not stop. The narrator returns, his voice heavier, more poetic, more suffocating. There are decisions, that they are not just choices. They are cuts to the soul. They are cracks in the chest. May it never be again, never again. Close, a soldier approached. "Is everything okay, Viktor?" he asked, looking at his condition. He didn't answer. I didn't know how. There was no word in the world to answer that question. The commander hurried past, shouting orders. "Prepare ammunition. Tomorrow, we advance. No one retreats. Do you understand? No one retreats." The words echoed in his head like hammer blows. Nobody backs down. Nobody comes back. But, in his chest, another voice, lower, more tremulous, but infinitely more powerful, whispered, "Time, please, come back." The narrator emerges, his voice now cracking, almost breaking. What is war? When the one you love, it's on the other side, leaving, without you. Viktor looked up, to the dirty sky, heavy, torn with smoke and the smell of death. And, with her eyes full of tears, she spoke, without knowing whether she was speaking to God, to the universe, or to herself. "What do I do? What do I do? ... I stay here and lose you, or do I run away and lose everything?" He knew if I ran away, if I deserted, would be hunted. He would be condemned. It would be treasonous. But what if he didn't run away? It would be a traitor to oneself. It would be a traitor to love. His chest was burning. His heart ached in a way that no bullet, no explosion, no bomb had ever hurt. And then, he understood. There was no choice without pain. There was no way out without a wound. Anyway, it would hurt. It would tear. It would bleed. But there was a difference. A cruel difference. A definite difference. If he ran away, I would take risks. He would lose his homeland. You would lose your name. He would lose his position. But, ... if he stayed, I would lose her. I would lose the only thing that made all of this make sense. The narrator returns, his voice now more shaky, slower, tearing through the chest of the listener. And sometimes ... love ... is also war. A war where there is no winner. Where to love ... it's choosing what wound ... you ... can. To load. Viktor stood up, the look firm, determined, the letter pressed to the chest. The body was shaking. My heart felt like it was going to explode. He looked around, His companions had no idea what was going on inside him. They fought for their nations. He fought for her. He took a deep breath, and amidst the noise of gunshots, orders, smoke, he whispered, "He's waiting for me. I'm coming back. Even if I have to go through hell itself, I'll be back." The narrator closes, his voice now just a breath, poetic, devastating, like someone holding back their own tears. And in that moment, in the middle of the battlefield, amidst the noise of the bombs, and the sound of one's own heart, he understood that sometimes love doesn't ask you if you want to fight. He just gives you the battlefield and the reason, and forces you to choose by whom. Are you willing? Dying. The silence that precedes a decision is often more deafening than any explosion, sharper than any bullet, more devastating than any bomb. When Viktor stood up from that trench, his eyes narrowed, his breathing heavy, his hands trembling as he held that piece of paper, which was now more than a letter. It was a cry for help, coming from the one he loved most in the world. He knew that what he was about to do, there was no turning back. The narrator appears, his voice deep, broken, full of poetry and pain. Sometimes, the biggest battle is not against those who point a gun at you. It's against time, against the distance, against destiny itself, who looks you in the eyes and whispers, "Let's see if you make it in time." The field was too calm, but not the calm that brings peace. It was the treacherous silence, the silence that precedes chaos, the silence that precedes the next attack, the next bomb, the next name crossed off the list of the living. He knew that if he waited one more day, it might be too late. Maybe time would not forgive him. My heart was racing like never before. The fear was not of death. Death, he already knew it. The fear, it was not supposed to arrive on time. The narrator returns, his voice slower, heavier, more suffocating. To escape, it's not always cowardice. Sometimes, it's the only way, to fight for the only thing that still keeps you alive. He looked around. He felt the wind cutting his face, taking with it the smell of mud, blood, iron, gunpowder, despair. And for the first time, he realized that he no longer belonged there. There, it was no longer his war. The body moved almost automatically. He picked up the rifle, but not as if he were going to fight. He took it as if he knew that he might need it. Not against enemies in uniform, but against anything that tried to stop him from going back to her. The road to the supply post was narrow, full of fences, holes, bomb remains, pieces of men who never returned. But, at that moment, nothing seemed more frightening than the possibility of arriving and not finding her anymore. As he approached the communications sector, where few guards were stationed at night, he took a deep breath. He felt his legs tremble. His entire body seemed to vibrate, as if the entire universe was collapsing within him. And then, he waited. He waited for the guard to walk away. He waited for the exact moment when the silence of the dawn would be an accomplice to what he was about to do. The narrator appears, his voice now more shaky, more poetic, more stifled. Sometimes, love makes you do things that you never imagined, things you swore you would never do. But when the one you love is at the end of the line, you learn what rules. They are just words written by those who never needed choosing between war and love. In a quick movement, he grabbed the fence wire. He dragged himself along. He tore his uniform on the wire. Blood ran down his leg, down his arm, but it didn't stop. Fear exploded in his chest, but love, it was bigger. He ran through the forest. The branches cut his face. The thorns tore the skin. The whole body ached, but with every step, with every meter walked, a single phrase echoed in my chest. He's waiting for me. For God's sake, wait for me. I'm coming back. I'm coming back. The sky was beginning to lighten. The distant sound of sirens, marches, gunshots no longer seemed so threatening, because now, the real enemy was time. The road was destroyed. Broken bridges, burnt villages, paths that once seemed familiar were now just traces of a shattered world. But he followed, dragging the body, pushing one's own soul forward, because going back was no longer an option. It was a matter of life, or of love. The narrator returns, his voice now breaking, as if holding his own chest to keep from collapsing. What nobody tells you, it's just that Sometimes, to escape, it is the most courageous act that love forces you to do, because it's not about cowardice. It's about of not accepting, losing without trying. When he found the first abandoned wagon, he knew that it might be his only transportation. His hands were shaking as he tied the reins. The horse neighed, frightened, as if it sensed that that path promised nothing other than pain. But he went up. He pulled the reins, and, in the midst of the wind, the cold, the fear, he clutched the handkerchief she had given him before leaving, dirty, torn, but still, smelling of home, smelling like her. Every bend in the road seemed to hide not only dangers, but questions. Will I arrive on time? Is she still breathing? Will ... God ... give me this miracle? The body no longer knew whether it was shaking from cold, hunger or fear, but love. Love pushed. The narrator closes, his voice now just a thread of pain, hope and poetry. And so, between bombings, between unfulfilled orders, between the risk of never being called a soldier again, or of never being called a free man again, he ran away. But he didn't run away from the war. He did not run away from death. He didn't run away from fear. He ran away from the possibility of not being there when the one he loves, the last breath, and, in the middle of the road, with the sky torn, the body in pieces, and the chest about to explode, he narrowed his eyes, and, through clenched teeth, he whispered, "He's waiting for me. By God, he's waiting for me, because I'm coming back, even if it is with my last bit of life, but I'll be back." The sound of hooves hitting the ground mixed with the echo of his own thoughts. The cold wind cut through the face. The smell of ash, of burnt earth, of a world in ruins, impregnated the skin, the hair, the soul. But, inside his chest, tight, suffocating, there was something stronger than all of that. The fear of not arriving on time. The narrator appears, his voice hoarse, trembling, deeply charged with poetry and pain. What nobody tells you. It's just that, sometimes, every step, every kilometer, every curve, it's a prayer. Unspoken, but felt, whispered in the chest. Between clenched teeth, between tears, between pleas that the world will never hear. The road seemed longer than ever. The road, once familiar, was now a sequence of pieces of a world torn apart by war. Destroyed houses, trees split in half, broken bridges, marks of fire, of blood, of everything that the war took away, except the hope that Viktor insisted on carrying in his chest, pressed between her handkerchief and that letter, which was now crumpled, dirty, wet with sweat, tears, and fear. The body was at its limit. His hands, burned by the cold, held the reins tightly, as if, somehow, this would also hold back time itself. But time ... time has no reins. He looked at the sky and tried to understand if God was listening, if the universe, somewhere, still cared, if the stars, up there, knew how much that love was trying to survive, even when everything seemed to want to erase it. "Wait for me," he whispered, looking at the horizon. "Wait for me, love. Wait for me ... Just a little longer. Just a little longer." The narrator returns, his voice tighter, more shaky, almost suffocated. What is love, if not that? Run, even without knowing. If there are still people waiting for you at the end of the road. But ... run. Because ... if you don't run, the weight of regret, it will be crueler ... then any end. Halfway there, he crossed paths with other soldiers. Suspicious looks, hands on the trigger, armed hearts. But at that moment, no one saw a deserter. No one saw a traitor. No one saw a fugitive. If you looked closely, they would see a man ... desperate ... fighting. Not against armies, but against an even more cruel enemy. The time passed through ghost towns, broken windows, doors open, swinging in the wind, creaking as if they, too, were crying for those who were gone. And every time he passed an improvised cross, planted on the side of the road, he tightened his chest. Because every cross, it was an unspoken question. What if it's too late? The cold of dawn was beginning to turn into a dry, heavy, suffocating heat. But he didn't feel it anymore, because there was something burning brighter inside, love, and the fear of losing him. The narrator appears, his voice now just a breath, mixed between poetry, despair and hope. Every kilometer, It was a prayer, a plea, a silent negotiation with God, with time, with one's own destiny. Let me get there, ... Just leave it. I arrive. The horse stumbled. The cart was rocking. His body hurt so much that sometimes he didn't know if what was running down his face was sweat, tears, or fear itself taking shape, but it continued. Why stop? It was never an option. When the road opened up in front of a broken bridge, despair set in. He looked around, looking for another path, any trail, any trace, any hope. Found an old fallen log. It went down, pushed. He tore his hands on the wood. It bled, but he made a pass, improvised, dangerous but enough, because loving is also crossing bridges that no one else would cross. He climbed into the cart again. He pulled the reins. My heart felt like it was going to come out of my mouth. Every meter, it was a punch in the chest. Every curve, it was a pain in the soul. And, in the middle of the wind, the fear, the road, ... There was only one single phrase, repeated, like a mantra, like a prayer, like a stifled scream. He's waiting for me. Please, ... Wait for me. The narrator returns, his voice now more choked, torn, trembling, almost falling apart. There are loves who don't know how to wait, and there are loves that they can't. They can single quotes T ... arriving late, because ... sometimes ... the time does not forgive, and love ... corre ... against him. When he saw, in the distance, the old mill, the one that would always mark halfway to the village, his chest almost collapsed, because now ... now, it was closer than far. But, the fear grew, fear exploded, fear took over, because, the closer he got, the more real the question that, until then, he had tried not to ask became, is there still time? The horse was already panting, exhausted. He got down, pulled the reins with his hands. He pushed, dragged, stumbled. The body no longer knew if it was whole, but the soul still held on. The narrator closes, his voice now just a whisper, full of poetry, despair, love, and a stifled hope. And so, between destroyed roads, among forgotten crosses, between trails that looked more like hell, itself a man ... It tore the world apart ... to try, to arrive, to try, to live ... What, perhaps, if it were the last piece ... of a love that never ... never ... if you left to die. And, looking at the horizon, it saw, up on the hill, the roof of the house, the outline of the balcony, that old window, and, even with the body about to fall ... squint your eyes, the tears flow, and, between sobs, with the weakest voice that ever came out of her mouth, he whispers, he's waiting for me, by God ... he's waiting for me ... I arrived, I arrived. The horizon, which for so long had been a promise, now seemed like an abyss, because when you expect too much, when you dream too much, when you're racing against time, arriving stops being just hope, and it turns into fear. The narrator appears, his voice low, hoarse, choked, as if holding back his own tears. What nobody tells you, it's just that, sometimes, what scares the most, it's not arriving, and to arrive, and find out ... that maybe ... it's too late. Viktor was standing still, in front of the hill, in front of the final curve. The whole body was shaking, not from the cold, not from tiredness, but from a fear so great, so deep, that it seemed to tear not only his chest, but also his very soul. The roof of the house appeared on the horizon. That balcony, where years ago they used to sit, drink coffee, dream, laugh, now seemed distant, strange, almost unrecognizable. His heart was beating so hard that for a moment he thought he might die right there. Not from exhaustion, not from physical pain, but of fear. Fear of what I would find, or what you wouldn't find. Is it? What if I didn't arrive on time? What if she already, is it no longer? The narrator returns, his voice heavier, more shaky, almost broken. There are arrivals that are not made of steps. They are made ... of short size ... with hands clasped to the chest, of eyes ... that cannot open out of fear ... of hearts that only know one thing, please, that she still be here. He clutched the handkerchief to his chest, the same handkerchief she gave him at the station. It still had her scent. It still carried everything they were, everything they promised, everything the war tried to take away. But he couldn't. He took a step. The legs gave out. The body wanted to give in. But he squeezed his eyes shut, took a deep breath, and continued. Each step felt heavier than the last. Every meter, a stab in the chest, because now the fear was heavier than the war itself. Memories invaded. Her image on the balcony, her voice calling your name in the late afternoon, the smell of bread coming out of the oven, the sound of laughter, the sound of life, before life fell apart. But what if all this, now, was it just memory? The narrator returns, his voice now just a thread, mixed with poetry and pain, to arrive. It's not always relief. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a pain that you spent all the way trying not to feel. He went up the last curve. The wooden gate was there, the peeling paint, the marks of time, of absence, of life that went on, even without him, stopped. The hand was shaking so much that he could barely hold the latch. The heart seemed to no longer fit in the chest. The world seemed smaller. The air simply didn't come anymore. And now, or never again. He looked out the window. The curtains were the same, the flowers on the windowsill. Now, wilted the smell of home was still there, mixed with the smell of longing, of pain, of the time spent without him. And then, he saw, in the chair, sitting, from coasts, fragile, so small, so light, so different from anything he remembered. She, Anastasia. The hair was no longer as full. The body seemed smaller, more fragile, almost made of wind. But it was her. Still, it was her. The narrator returns, his voice now cracking in his chest, choked, barely able to continue. There are scenes that break you, forever, that tear you apart, and yet they are what keep you standing. The hand knocked on the door, 1, 2, weak, almost no sound, but on the inside, she heard. Her body trembled, the eyes widened, the hand went to the mouth. The heart raced in a way that felt like it was going to explode, because that sound, that way of beating it, was his. It always was, it always would be. But no, it couldn't be. Her heart wanted to believe, but the head said no, that it was impossible, that it was a thing of longing, of pain, of the mind itself, playing with hope. She tried to get up. The body didn't want to, but she went. He dragged himself to the door. He gripped the latch with trembling hands. The narrator emerges, his voice now shaky, almost a choked whisper, and in that moment, the whole world, stopped. The time, he fell silent, and everything that existed. It was a single question, and you, or it's just what's left of me, trying to believe. The hands turned the key, slowly, almost as if the entire universe held its breath. The door opened, her eyes met his. First, they didn't believe it. Afterwards, they didn't know whether to cry, whether to scream, whether to fall. Only they looked at each other. They looked at each other as if they were seeing a miracle, as one who sees the impossible to happen. The voice didn't come out. The mouth trembled. The tears ran down my face before I even understood what was happening. The hand on the chest, whole body shaking, the gaze lost between fear, love, relief, and pain. The narrator closes, his voice now just a breath, torn, poetic, trembling, almost broken. And so, after going through hell, after racing against time, after fighting against everything that seemed impossible, he arrived. It arrived. But what comes next? Not even love itself. He knows if it's a miracle or farewell. Time simply stopped. At that moment, there was no more war. There were no more trenches, bombs, orders, shouts, rifles, fear. There was no longer the sound of hooves on the road, nor the smell of mud, nor the bitter taste of longing. There was just they, two worlds. That, by miracle, by stubbornness, or by the mercy of a God who, on that day, decided to look out for them. They met again. The narrator appears, his voice low, choked, tearing in his chest, as if he were holding back his own tears. There are meetings. That they are not just reunions. They are rescues. They are the moment when life, if you refuse, letting love just be memory. Viktor couldn't move. The legs were shaking. The whole body seemed to not know whether to fall, run, or collapse. The eyes locked on her eyes, and, in that look, there were all the days that the war tried to steal. Every night, they dreamed about each other, without knowing if there was still an us. All the sighs that were taken looking into the void, into the sky, into memories. She hands on, chest, the trembling mouth, the face, pale, tired, fragile, but still her, the woman, for whom he tore the whole world apart. To be there, at that exact second, tearful eyes, the tears fell, slow, silent, as if even they were afraid of breaking that moment. Is it you? Her voice came out in a whisper, weak, almost non-existent. Viktor narrowed his eyes. The mouth trembled so much that, for a few seconds, there was no word in the world capable of coming out. But when he did, when the chest left, when the heart gave space, he replied, in a whisper, in a breath, in a miracle, it's me, love. It is me, I went back, I promised you, that I would come back. The narrator returns, his voice now more shaky, more choked, almost dissolving into poetry and pain. And in that second, the entire universe, goodbye, because love. Even after everything, even after the war, the distance, the time, yet I resisted. She took a step, so fragile, so light, so small, that looked like it was made of glass, of wind, of longing, and he opened his arms, without thinking, not knowing if the body could handle it, without caring, and he launched himself. The hug was more than a hug. He was resurrection. He was the reunion of two pieces of the world that refused to be lost. His hands were squeezing her body, so fragile, so light, that it seemed that if he didn't hold on tight, the wind would carry it away. And she squeezed his back. I held his face. He smelled her hair. She ran her hand over his chest, as if she wanted to make sure it was real. And you, my God, it's you, she repeated, between sobs, between tears, between smiles and pains that the world would never be able to understand. He pressed her face between his hands. He looked into her eyes, and, even with a broken voice, he said, sorry for taking so long. Sorry for leaving you alone for so long. Sorry for not having arrived earlier. But, I went back. I'm here for you. The narrator appears, his voice now lower, more poetic, more raspy. There are meetings that don't need words, because there is pain that don't fit into any sentence, and there are loves that only if you recognize yourself, do not touch, in the smell, in the look, which says, agent, yet, there is. They sat on the doorstep, her body resting on his chest, eyes closed. The silence was no longer empty, it was a coat. He ran his hands through her hair, now thinner, finer, more fragile, and she held his hands as if she were holding her own life. You, look so different, she said, running her fingers over his face, feeling every scar, every mark, every new piece of that man that the war didn't kill, but transformed. And you look so beautiful. So, even after everything, yet, so you, he replied, his voice choked, running his hand over her face, her cheeks, her chin, her neck, her chest. The narrator returns, his voice now breaking, almost failing, and, in that embrace, at that reunion, everything that was pain, everything that was waiting, everything that was war, it fell apart. No, because it's over. But why? For a moment, there was only love, not whole, destroyed, and yet, standing, she squeezed his hands. He looked deep. The look already said more than any sentence, but still, she said, now, you won't go anymore. No, he is. He pressed her face close, rested his forehead against hers, closed his eyes, and with the lowest voice that had ever come out of his mouth, replied, now, I'm not going anywhere anymore. I'll stay. I stay until the end. And she smiled, with that smile mixed with pain, relief, love, and farewell, because, deep down, deep in the eyes, they both knew They both felt it. They both understood that maybe the end. I was already ... But the narrator closes, his voice now just a whisper, torn, poetic, suffocated, and so, in the embrace of someone who has been through hell, love it did what war never could. He is resurrected, for a moment, for as long as time allows. They were. Again, just one. The weather seemed different there. He didn't run, it didn't fly, but also, it didn't stop. It dripped, by the hands, through the eyes, through the chest, like sand, like wind, like something that, no matter how much you try to hold on, simply goes away. The narrator appears, his voice choked, low, full of poetry and pain. What nobody tells you, it's just that, sometimes ... Amar ... It's watching. Who do you love? Leave, slowly, so after day, sigh, after sigh, like someone holding a goodbye. What's next? In installments, the following days were a mixture of miracle and agony, because, on the one hand, he arrived on time, on the other hand, each morning that dawned was, in fact, a countdown. Viktor woke up early. I sat on the edge of the bed. I watched her sleep, the chest rising and falling, weaker with each dawn, the skin paler, the eyes deeper, but the smile, it was still the same. "Good morning, love," she whispered, with that thread of voice that seemed lighter than the wind itself. And he held her hands, pressed them against his face, and replied, "Good morning, my miracle. Good morning, my life." The narrator returns, his voice now lower, more poetic, more raspy. Amar, Ali. It wasn't about plans anymore, not even about tomorrow. Amar, it was about the now, and that's it. Why? ... Tomorrow. It was no longer certainty. They spent hours sitting on the porch, he, with her leaning against his chest, she, with her eyes closed, breathing deeply, as if trying to memorize his smell, his warmth, the sound of his heart. They spoke little. Why? There are not always words. For those who know who is saying goodbye, sometimes they just remained silent. They only heard the wind. They just held each other's hands. Only there were, but not now, while the now still existed. The narrator emerges, his voice now shakier, tighter. There are goodbyes that don't come with suitcases, not even with station hugs. There are goodbyes that come, little by little, in longer looks, in longer silences, in hands that tremble, but they refuse, letting go. At night, he lay down beside her. He pulled her to his chest. My body felt so fragile, so light, so small, and squeezed. He squeezed as if he were holding the world itself, afraid to see him slip. She ran her fingers over his scars, on the calluses of the hands, in the marks that the war left. And sometimes, with that smile that mixed love and pain, he would say, "You came back, so different, ... but still ... so mine, so ours." He squeezed harder. He took a deep breath. I held back the tears, but I didn't always succeed. I would do it all over again, to see you here, to have you here, even if it were for just one more day, for just one more second. He whispered, his voice cracking. The narrator returns, his voice lower, slower, as if holding his own chest to keep from collapsing. What is love, if not that? Hold on tight, even knowing that, in the end, all escaped. The neighbors came. They brought bread, flowers, hot broth. Some just passed by to look, to see that man that crossed the world, that tore the war apart, to be there, to hold the love of his life in her last days. And every look, it was a mixture of sadness and of reverence, because everyone they knew that they were witnessing something the world no longer sees, something that time no longer allows, something that just love. It is possible to do. The days were getting shorter, the nights longer. Her chest, it went up and down, slow down. And one of those early mornings, lying on his chest, looking at the ceiling, at the void, at infinity, she whispered, "Promise, promise that when I go, don't you forget me, that you take me with you, wherever you go, wherever the world takes you, that, wherever you are, I'm still going to live in you." He held her face with both hands, pressed it against his chest, kissed her forehead, her eyes, her lips, ... And, with the most cracked, most suffocated, most broken voice he had ever had in his life, he replied, I promise you, my love, that it will never die in me, because as long as I breathe, you breathe. As long as I exist, there is. The narrator closes. His voice is now just a thread, torn, poetic, trembling, like someone holding their own chest so it doesn't shatter. And so, in the last few days, love, he did what he does best. He squeezed harder. He became more present. If it was done, more eternal. Why? If you love yourself, sometimes it's time to wait. Sometimes it is also saying goodbye. Little by little, every dawn, with every breath, with every silence, until the day in which love it transforms. Never again, it will be lost. The dawn of that day had a different silence. It was not the usual silence. It wasn't the silence of the village waking up. It wasn't the silence of the wind blowing through the trees. It was a silence that hurt, that was tight, that announced. The narrator appears, his voice lower than ever, torn, trembling, as if holding his own chest so it doesn't break. There are silences that the whole world notices, because they are silences that come before the end. Silences. What do they say? It's today, and now. It arrived. Viktor woke up before sunrise, not because I wanted to, but because something inside him knew she was still sleeping, or at least it seemed so. The fragile light, so small body, it looked more like it was made of wind, sighing, of longing. He held her hand. He squeezed. He got up slowly. He opened the window. The sky was beginning to lighten, a golden hue on the horizon. But that day, gold didn't seem like hope. It seemed farewell. He went back to bed. He lay down beside her. He wrapped his arms around her body, as he had done every night since he returned. He pressed it to his chest, and it stayed there, feeling the smell, the heat, the sound of what little was left of her chest, rising and falling, slower and slower. The narrator returns, his voice breaking, trembling, choked. What is love, if not that? Squeeze harder, when everything, it's escaping, when everything, it's leaving, when nothing more, it can be done. In addition to hold and love, until the end. She opened her eyes, slowly, looked at him, and he smiled. That smile, a mix of love, pain, relief, and farewell. It's here, he whispered, his voice almost fading. He held her face. He ran his hands through his hair, his cheeks, his lips, and he replied, with the most trembling voice of his life, I promised you, and I complied. I'm here, my love, ... Until the end. She squeezed his hand, looked into his eyes, and for a few seconds, they stood there, no word. I'm here, only, to look, touch, present, as if, in that second, they tried, record each other, keep, memorize, for nothing, not even time, not even death, not even the universe. If I were able to turn off, the narrator emerges, his voice now lower than ever, like a broken breath, a suffocated poetry. And so, that last dawn, love, he refused. Leaving, he stayed. It was left, even knowing that the body, I wasn't going to go anymore. To hold on her chest, rose, and it went down. Slower, weaker. She took a deep breath. He shook his hand. Love, if I have to go, promise me. Promise that he follows, that you live, that he takes me, in everything, in the mornings, in the winds, in the songs, in the memories, in the letters, that he leaves, to die, in you. His tears were no longer controllable. They fell, heavy, hot, salty. He squeezed her face. They touched their foreheads, and, with the most cracked voice that ever came out of his mouth, he replied, I promise you, I'll take you forever, in me, in my chest, in my world, in what's left of me. You, come with me, wherever I go. She smiled, that little smile, weak, but still, it had strength. I had love, I had everything. And then, she took a deep breath. 1, twice, the chest rose, and he went down, went up, and it came down, slow down. The eyes began to close, the hands were still clutching his. The body was getting lighter, more silent, and, in the midst of this silence, she said, almost no sound, but still, in a way that the entire universe would hear. EU, the AMO, 4, always. The chest rose. It went down, went up, it went down, and then stopped. The narrator appears, his voice now just a thread, a whisper, a torn, trembling poem that breaks before it even ends. And so, in the embrace of someone who has been through hell, love, he said goodbye, of the body, but no, of life. Why? The body, but love, love. He refuses. If you refuse, dying, he squeezed harder. He buried his face in her neck, the chest trembling, whole body shaking, the hands holding on as if holding a piece of the world itself, crumbling, and between tears, sobs, despair, and love, he said, "You, come with me, forever, forever, I love you, forever, forever." The narrator closes, his voice is just a breath, poetic, devastating, eternal, and on that day, that morning, in that last breath, love proved like death, not even time, not even oblivion. It is capable to destroy what it was built. For two souls who refused to get lost. Why? There are loves. What? Even after the end, continued to exist. If this story touched your heart, if at any moment you felt the pain, the love, the struggle, and the surrender of this couple, so don't let this story die. Share, subscribe, activate the bell, because here, every letter, every story, is a reminder that love is the only thing capable of crossing war, time, and even death. And I ask you, if it were you, how far would you go for the one you love? See you in the next letter, because as long as there is love, there will be stories to tell.